Let's just move off coronavirus just for a moment and take a question from Matthew Eaton, from Matt.
Thank you. How has the Tories' Brexit plan gone from being oven ready to a threat to our economic and political integrity?
John Caudwell.
Thank you for that. Well, I don't think that it was, first of all, oven ready, but...
How would you have described it?
It was partially developed. There was a long, long way
partially
to
frozen
negotiations because, you know, if you look at what Brussels are doing, and I call them the Brussels bully boys, they were taking £8 billion per year net off us. They were benefiting by £80 billion worth of trade benefit in trading with Britain. That's 80 billion better trade for them than we were receiving. They were then plundering our fishing waters, and all that with the £8 billion. Now, any commercial-minded businessman on the planet would say, yes, we'd love to do a free trade deal with Britain. We'd absolutely adore it, because we're going to gain 80 billion worth of trade deficit. And yet, they're bullying us and beating us up. They beat Theresa May black and blue, and they've continued trying to do it all the way through. Fortunately, Boris rose to the challenge and fought back. And this behaviour by Brussels, I find absolutely abhorrent. But of course, the reason they're doing it is because they've got no option. Because if they gave Britain an easy ride, the other European countries would see that, and potentially there'd be an exodus, possibly a mass exodus, possibly a complete collapse of the Union. And of course, that is not what Brussels wants. So they will use any means, fair or foul, to protect their situation and make it look to any country that dares to want to come out of the Union that they will be crucified in the process. And look what they've done just recently, threatened to cut off all Britain's food supplies to Northern Ireland. I mean, that's appalling.
Jon Ashworth?
I mean, it is curious, isn't it? Because Boris Johnson told us he had an oven-ready deal. He insisted on having a general election in order to get a mandate for his deal, and his deal went through Parliament, and we were lucky enough to see a parade of ministers on the television shows and in the studios telling us that Boris Johnson had got this great deal and we should all celebrate, that Boris Johnson had confounded his critics, Nadhim said, because it was such a brilliant deal. Now, 6 months down the line, we're told that it isn't such a brilliant deal, and it has to be looked at again, because they didn't understand, apparently, the implications of the deal at the time, or they're either lying to us at the time. And now what they're doing is by bringing forward these particular measures and the way in which they affect the Northern Ireland Protocol, they're actually talking about or admitting that they're prepared to break international law. That is a quite extraordinary position for the United Kingdom to be in, a country that helped create international law, who has always been a proud nation on the global stage, making the case for international law. And it's left us in this rather sorry state of even potentially the next President of the United States criticising us last night on Twitter. And I just sort of think that, you know, why are they doing all this? Why are they doing this at this time when we're in the midst of a global pandemic? We can have disagreements about how we should respond to the pandemic, but I think we can all admit that it's a pretty big issue that needs the undivided attention of the government. Why are they doing this now when we need to be getting on with dealing with the coronavirus crisis?
Well, I think there's a lot that's been misunderstood about these negotiations from day one. You know, you don't negotiate with your hand behind your back. We should have negotiated with Brussels from a really tough line right from the beginning, and we would have got this done, because every single factor is compelling why the EU should do this deal with Britain on fair terms. And the only non-compelling factor is the possible collapse of the EU as every country starts to think, do we really want to be part of this shambles? And it's that is causing the EU.
So why is the EU not doing that then? Is it because the UK government is just poor at negotiating then? Why is, if the EU is so keen to have this deal, why have we not got one?
I'm afraid Theresa May and the Conservative government were dreadful. I used to put my head in my hands in horror at the way we were negotiating with Brussels. You don't negotiate with bullies by cajoling them and saying, please, and can you do this? You fight bullies with the only weapon that they understand, and that's force, which is what Boris has done. And now they should be doing a deal with us. They should be saying, yes, you can have your international fisheries waters back. What did they say? They said you can have your waters back, but you'll never export another piece of fish to the whole of Europe if you do. Right. Well, it's disgusting.
Well, I'm sure if Michel Barnier was here, and of course, Michel, if you're watching, you're very welcome to come on the programme. I'm sure he'd deny that he is, or that they are acting as bully boys. Let's just hear a bit from our audience. Nathan.
Yeah, if I may ask, based on the government admitting that they're willing to break international law, why should they expect the rest of us to follow the laws that they set via Twitter and statutory instruments there? For instance, if I don't wear a face mask on the train, is that just a specific and limited way of breaking the law and therefore condoned by the government?
Niall?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify why Boris was seen as fighting back against Brussels when instead he's now implementing something which would involve us breaking international law to bypass the agreement, because that doesn't seem like he's winning if he's having to fall back to something that affects us breaking that law.
Yeah, you know, none of us here can condone.
Let me hear a bit more from the audience, John, just one second, because it's question time, so they can put their questions. Michael.
Yeah, I think it's a bit rich of John Caudwell banging the party political drum against the other John there, where he's done a great job himself about showing where his colours are. Basically here, what's quite clear is that the government's committed, it's apparent that for a no-deal Brexit, whatever it takes, and simply blaming and bullying, as John appears to be doing there, and insulting Brussels, isn't really going to work, I don't think. It's not really going swimmingly at the moment, is it?
Does anyone who's got their hands up there support what the government is doing? Katie, you're taking your hands out. OK, because I know there are... OK, Katie, let's hear from you.
No, I absolutely don't support.
Oh, you don't? Hang on, because I know there are plenty of Brexiteers among you. So Ian, let's hear from you.
I think it's more of an oven-ready chicken stir-fry, this lot, because I can't see the way the economy is going at the moment. If we have a no deal, I can't see it being much worse than it is now or what's to come when the furlough ends.
Right, OK. Well, Boris Johnson's deal, I mean, the question is, from Matt, how has the Tories' Brexit deal gone from being oven-ready to a threat to our economic and political integrity? I just wanted to read something to you. This is a huge success for Boris. I pay tribute to all his hard work and congratulate him for defying the odds. This was a description of the withdrawal agreement agreed by Boris Johnson, who went to election on. Who said that?
Me.
Yes.
I know. I'm going to tell you why.
So how's it gone from a huge success to no longer a success at all?
So, Matt, look, we left the European Union with the withdrawal agreement and the Northern Irish Protocol. Now, within that, especially on the Northern Ireland Protocol, the I's weren't dotted and the T's weren't crossed, and both sides agreed that there will be a joint committee to deal with the details of that. Where we are today, we're negotiating a future arrangement between ourselves and the EU. We've deliberately, Matt, not asked for a bespoke, special, unique deal, because the moment you ask for something that's never been written down before, the lawyers have a field day and it will take forever to deliver.
Well, lots of lawyers are resigning, actually, at the moment, rather than having a field day. Let me
just finish this point, Fiona. This is an important point, right? We've deliberately asked for a deal like Canada, something that the European Union have done before, or like with Japan, right, from the European Union. Now, we're negotiating in good faith. It is not about us actually not delivering on the withdrawal agreement and the Northern Irish Protocol. It is about how we deliver on those things. We're investing in infrastructure. You've all heard this week about sanitary and phytosanitary, the point that John Caudwell was making about food. We're investing in infrastructure in Northern Ireland. The Northern Ireland Secretary is putting £2 billion to get Stormont back operational, because we had to have it back operational because of our commitment to withdrawal agreement.
No, but
and the
that's off. In fairness, no, that is off the point.
No,
How has it gone from being a deal that you thought was a huge success,
I'm about to tell
you went to the country with,
to
one that you now want to change?
I am confident that we will get a deal. We're negotiating in good faith. Monsieur Barnier is also negotiating in good faith, and I think both sides can get a deal. What the Prime Minister has said is we can't keep negotiating forever. There are still significant gaps on fishing and on what they call level playing field, i.e. state subsidy. Now, we've just announced a deal with Japan, a really historic deal, much bigger deal than we would have had with Japan if we were still part of the EU. And there, again, we have announced how we will deal with state subsidy, which should reassure our European friends as well. So I'm confident that we will get a deal on the future if both sides negotiate hard by the 15th of October, beyond which the Prime Minister is right to say that businesses around the country, and I'm the Business and Industry Minister, need certainty. So we need to make sure that if we can't get a deal on the terms of Canada, we'll go for an Australia deal and we will support our businesses.
Which is no deal. An Australia deal means no deal.
Well, under WTO terms, Australia
which is no deal.
Trades with the European Union.
I just wondered if you wanted to answer Nathan's point about... Because as we had the Northern Ireland Secretary saying not once but twice, and he should know because it's about the Northern Ireland Protocol, that this is breaking the law in a very specific and limited way. Would you, as Nathan's suggesting, sanction other law breaking in a very specific and limited way? Say about the rule of six,
First of all,
for example.
the withdrawal agreement does not, and the UK Internal Market Bill does not do that. The clauses within it...
You're saying it doesn't break the law?
No, hold on a second. The Attorney General has written to the committee, the select committee is responsible, making it very clear what the legal position is.
OK, so just so we're... No, hang on. Just so we're clear...
Yes.
The Northern Ireland Secretary says it breaks the law. Are you saying differently?
No, I'm not saying different. I'm saying to you exactly what the Attorney General has written to the select committees and the Northern Ireland Secretary has said. What I'm saying is that no government can stand by and watch a part of its country and a community within its country, Northern Ireland, be harmed in any way.
That's not answering Nathan's question.
These clauses, Nathan, are an insurance policy. We've added to them that Parliament has to vote. Parliament is sovereign. Parliament would have to vote if the government has to invoke them to protect the peace process and the communities of Northern Ireland, because what we can't do, to John Caudwell's point, is have a situation where an extreme interpretation of the Northern Irish Protocol would actually stop us from sending food. 65% of our trade with Northern Ireland is with GB. 65%.
That's actually not what Nathan was asking. But so let me just hear a bit more from you. So that's not what Nathan's question was. But that wasn't his question.
Yes,
I know you wanted to talk. That was not his question. His question was very specifically, given that the government is breaking the law in a specific limited way, is it OK for everyone else?
I'm saying, Nathan, you can't extrapolate in that way because you can't watch a part of your country be harmed and the peace process be harmed and be a bystander.
All right,
that is the whole,
we hear you.
Let's hear
from the rest of this
audience. An insurance policy?
Charlotte, let's hear from you.
Yeah, so the panel are talking about breaking the law. If these negotiations don't go well, it'll be the case that UK law enforcement loses access to really crucial European crime fighting systems. And this is a real concern for everybody in the law enforcement community. I don't know what the panel think about that, but the way the negotiations are deteriorating, this is looking more and more likely, and the workarounds are really not efficient.
Zainab, you had your hand up a moment ago.
Hi. Yeah, I just wanted to follow on from Nathan's question. Is it not hypocritical that the government is advising the nation to report their neighbours for breaking the law? However, the government themselves intend to breach the rule of law.
OK. Nicci, I'll come back to you, John. Nicci, you're smiling at that.
I am smiling at that and at the previous question about law breaking. I mean, the rule of six is quite interesting because the rule of six feels like it's clear. And then you know that people are going to pubs, going to restaurants, they're stomping around on moors dressed in breeches, shooting grouse.
Well, Nicci, let's come back to Matthew's question, though, which was about...
much less clear.
Well, let's come back to Matthew's question, which is about how has the Tories' Brexit deal gone from being oven-ready to a threat to our economic and political integrity? Those are Matt's words.
My view on that is that, so I ardently wanted to remain in Europe, and I think I'll be sad until the day I die that we're leaving, but completely accepted that 52% of the country voted to leave. But 52% of the country did not vote to leave in a kind of chaotic, disastrous way that's also driving the country mad with boredom, I think. We seem to be locked into this terrifyingly pedantic conversation about minutiae, which is very important, but it makes most of us lose the will to live, I'd say.
Can I come back on that?
Okay, let me just bring Sunetra in. She's not talked, but I will let you come back in. Sunetra.
What are my views?
Are you losing the will to live?
Well, I'm just thinking that here are two shambles. There's the way that this pandemic has been dealt with, and there's the way Brexit is unfolding. And in both cases, I'm worried about the economically vulnerable. I think in both cases, we need to identify. I agree. I don't want to, or I don't. In many cases, in this case, I don't have the qualifications to dwell on the niceties. What I want to see is that we identify the vulnerable and protect them. And I think that should be our fundamental goal, and that is where we should invest.
Jon, you were trying to come in.
Yeah, I really think the points that Nathan and Zainab made, they really are quite important. And I know, I have sympathy for you as a minister, because they may be you may find them slightly, you might think they're slightly frustrating questions, but the actions of governments and the actions of ministers have consequences. And we're in the midst of a crisis. We're asking the British people to make immense sacrifices, the rule of 6 in Oldham, in Leicester, now in Newcastle and Sunderland, not going into other people's houses, not seeing your family members in private gardens. I think the sacrifices, I think these restrictions are warranted. Probably disagree with colleagues here, but I agree with the government that these restrictions are necessary to try and bring infections down. I think we also need to sort out test and tracing. Sorry for being party political, but it is a shambles and needs fixing. Right? But at the same time, you're asking people to follow the law, face masks, rule of 6, not going into their houses, and you're actually completely admitting that you're going to be breaking international law. So do you not appreciate that when we're in a pandemic and we're asking people to follow so many different restrictions and rules, that the very least the government should do is follow the law themselves?
Can I come back on this point to Zainab and Nathan? Zainab, Parliament will make that decision. Parliament is sovereign. Why do I say that to you? Because actually the German Parliament at times has actually taken votes that move away from international agreements within Europe because they deem it unconstitutional to their country. The Canadian Parliament has actually voted on things where they've signed international treaties, but they've moved away from it in domestic lawmaking. So the same thing will happen here in our Parliament. We're not saying this will happen. All we're doing is saying we need the safeguards. We need an insurance policy that we can't allow one part of the United Kingdom, Northern Ireland, the communities of Northern Ireland, to be harmed in any way by some extreme interpretation of the Northern Irish Protocol. We will bring it back to Parliament to trigger those clauses if we need to protect the unfettered access of Northern Ireland to Great Britain. Okay. That is already, by the way, respected in the withdrawal agreement. So this has precedent internationally. And I think it would be wrong and unfair to extrapolate that to breaking the rule of 6 or to breaking any other rules in our country. So that is all I would say to you, Zainab and Nathan.
Peter.
Yeah, I don't condone the breaking of international law, though states do it quite often. I think a really dangerous thing in the future, being a Brexiteer, is that future trade deals, say with the one with Japan, which is, I think is really impressive, I think it's great. In the future, will states be looking to make deals with us in the case of the worried we might renege on it or pull back? And I'm saying this as a Brexiteer. I just don't think it's great going forward that states might think, well, that they've sort of had an agreement here and they might pull back with us, and then that may sort of harm future relations worldwide. I don't know what everyone thinks about that, but I think it's quite an interesting view for the future.
But Peter, people can see that we are doing it in the extreme case that the interpretation.
You have, Nadhim, forgive me, you have said that. I just need to hear from the audience. You have said that repeatedly.
Peter, beyond it, Japan agreed to deal with us because they see the benefits of a deal with the United Kingdom, which I think you were referring to earlier.
Katie.
So northern towns like Oldham are already disproportionately affected by coronavirus. And I think we're also going to be disproportionately affected by a no-deal Brexit. We were on holiday in Copenhagen last year and we were talking to people there and they said, look, we never have a majority government. Anytime anyone wants to form a government here, people need to sit down and they need to negotiate with each other. And they were absolutely flabbergasted that our UK government doesn't seem to understand what negotiation is. It's not standing there and shouting at the foreigners. You know, you need to sit round the table and negotiate properly. Otherwise, do you know who's going to lose? It's not going to be London. It's going to be northern towns like Oldham.
And Matt?
Yeah, sorry, it was just to go back to the point of, yes, it said it was oven ready, but Nadhim said that I's needed to be dotted and T's crossed, so it was never oven ready. When the UK came out of the shared customs territory, it was always going to be that Northern Ireland was going to be different. It is part of the UK, but it is the only part of the UK with a land border. So we knew that this was going to happen. So it was just another example of the government spinning and basically just lying to us again.